But first, I just want to ask you, what was the one word that would best describe how you felt when it was announced that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be the next president and vice president of the United States?
I was thrilled. First of all, obviously, Joe is somebody who stood by me on every major decision I had for 8 years. He's become a brother, a genuinely good friend. Kamala is one of my earliest supporters when I first launched my presidency. So I'm personally invested in them. And they have the character and experience, I think, to do an outstanding job in a very difficult time, a very challenging time in this country. But beyond the personal investment I have in them, I think this gives us a chance to get back to the kind of competent, caring government that we so badly need. Oprah, I would distinguish between the very real policy differences that exist between Democrats and Republicans, and some legitimate, tough issues, whether it's abortion or it's taxes. People have different views, and democracy is always going to be contentious. I distinguish between that and the demonization of opponents, the flouting of institutional norms and rules that govern how our democracy is supposed to function. The kinds of things that I saw over the last 4 years that endanger democracy operating the way it should. Yeah. And I think that what Joe and Kamala can do is to level set, to reestablish that we don't use the Justice Department, for example, to go after political enemies, that we don't mingle personal business interests with the business of government, that there's an expectation that the president doesn't routinely lie or reshape the truth to his own convenience, that he doesn't call journalists enemies of the state. Those kinds of things, which in some ways we became numb to over the last several years. I think that's the stuff that can be fixed, and Joe and Kamala will set a different tone. I think every president has been held to a different standard relative to this president. I think Donald Trump breached so many norms, so many basic assumptions about what a president should or should not do, that you can't come up with a comparable set of behaviors in the past. I think Michelle and I joke about the fact that one of the bigger scandals of my presidency was me wearing a tan suit during a press conference. So I go back and take a look at the clips about the way some pundits were talking about this tan suit. And it gives you some sense that folks were paying attention to what Michelle and I were doing, because it wasn't just me, it was our family, in ways that were unusual, but in some ways not unexpected. And truthfully, Michelle and I, we felt that we should have higher standards in terms of how we behave and ethics and fidelity to the truth. And part of that was because of a reverence for the office and the space we were occupying, the People's House, the White House, the enormous responsibilities that we had. Part of it undoubtedly because we were firsts and felt very much the need to exceed expectations rather than just meet them. Because we understood that in the same way that any first, whether it's Jackie Robinson or it's a female CEO or in any of those positions, you know that because you don't look like the past, people are going to be scrutinizing things a little bit more carefully.
Do you worry now that the Supreme Court may strike down the Affordable Care Act?
I don't think there's a basis for striking it down. It has been more resilient and now is more popular than I think people understood at the time that we passed it. America is unique among wealthy advanced nations in not providing health care to all of its citizens. And that is not only immoral, but it is also wildly inefficient because we have people who pile into emergency rooms for the most expensive care because they don't have basic preventive care. We are now seeing, in the middle of a pandemic, the consequences of not having a good public health infrastructure. Because no matter how good your health insurance is, if everybody around you is getting sick, then you're at risk as well. We went through our rough patches in the White House, as she's written about and she's talked about. But I tell you, the thing that I think we were good about was talking stuff through, never losing fundamental love and respect for each other, and prioritizing our kids. And the other thing that helps, and I write about this in the book, is having my mother-in-law, Ms. Marion Robinson. She kind of kept things going, and I'm sure that there were times where Michelle was furious at me, but she'd go up to the third floor, and Ms. Marion was sitting there, and she'd be like, well, you know, I know defended her son-in-law more often than I was aware of. Kept me out of trouble.